What we're going to do now is we're going to reprogram the CANVSERVO with universal firmware. So how do we do that? Right. We select the node, go to nodes on the top bar, program pick, and highlight selected node. We'll then pop you up a warning saying you must remove any slim nodes. It can cause corruption of the signal, which will cause the programming to fail. So anyway, so you answer yes to that. The next thing it will pop you up is a little box that will ask you to provide the firmware you want to put in it. Now we are going to use CANVSERVO Universal 3E Beta 3. Okay, it's saying it's a 25K. It isn't. It is a 26K. You always must check. So you press yes. I'll also then throw a warning to say it's CANVSERVO. Hex file is Cameo. Do you wish to continue? Yes. You'll then get a programming bar up at the top here that goes green quite slowly. Just got to wait for it to finish. Now, there is a known issue with programming over CBUS at this moment in time that has been solved, and it is regards the bootloader, in that it was to do with messages interfering with each other from modules. Two ways around it: program your node or your module on its own with just a CAN USB, or the other way is to just make sure your other nodes are how Ian Hogg determined it, quiescent, as in not sending any messages, so they don't interfere with any programming messages. A new bootloader has been devised. However, you have to program this bootloader into a PIC using a PIC kit. You can't do it over with the FCU, purely and simply because it's the bootloader that does the programming for the FCU, so it can't program itself, in effect. Anyway, this will continue to program the CANVSERVO board. What it will do at the end, hopefully, is it will come up with a little box that says programming complete. It will also remove the CANVSERVO, or it should remove the CANVSERVO board from the lists of boards, and the module itself will revert back to uninitiated slim mode. So you can then reintroduce it back into the system. Other than that, it's just a question of waiting. It can only run at a certain speed. There's no quick way around it. If you've got a PIC kit, you can do it that way. If you use a PIC, it doesn't use the bootloader, and it will update your bootloader for you, provided that the firmware you're using has the updated bootloader written into it. Okay, there we go. Programming completed successfully, and you will see that the CANVSERVO has disappeared. Okay. Also, the module is sat here in standard mode. Okay. So what we will do, I've just power cycled it, and now I am going to press and hold the button on what was the CANVSERVO board. It now says it's a Cameo board. Node 258. Cameo dash universal. Okay, now you will notice that it's given it the same number. It's also got the same CAN ID. So when we come to read the properties, it can't have the same CAN ID as CAN out, because the CAN ID for each module has to be unique. And also try reading the node values. Okay. And then what we're going to do to sort that out, it hasn't sorted itself out, is do a CAN ID enumeration on that particular node. Now, it's now got CAN ID of 3. The way that works is it asks every module starting at 0 for its CAN ID, and as soon as it finds a gap, it uses that number, or it will use the next highest number above the highest one that reports. So anyway, right, we now have a universal node. If I highlight that, it will tell me that all the channels are inputs. But I don't want all the channels to be inputs. I want channel 1 to be a servo. So, double click it. Channel 1. Select the input type I want. Servo. Okay, gives you a warning. Same buttons tend to apply, but there are a few more. Action inverted, trigger inverted, event inverted. Move to same position at startup, power up high. These are advanced buttons. The standard one, a 1 second cutoff, still applies. If you want it to move to the original position it was when you powered down, then you would highlight that button. Okay. All these refer to what happens when it sees the event. These bars here initially will do nothing. What you need to do is save the channel, finish, and it will go away and it will write to the module, and it will tell the module that channel 1 is now a servo. You can then go back into it and move the sliders until you have told the module that it is a servo module. It's not going to do any moving. Okay, so you've got 4 settings: on position, speed it moves on; off position, and the speed it moves off. Same 2 buttons: test on, test off. So you can set the channels up and you can test it. Here again, when you change the settings, save channel, finish, it will write the necessary values to the pick. So we now have channel 1 set as a servo. You'll notice down here that we have produced some events by doing that. These events, 101 and 201, are the 2 endpoints, on and off events, and 301 is the midpoint event. And the numbering is 1, 0, 1 is channel 1, 3 midpoint, 0, 1 is channel 2, 3, 0, 1 is channel 1, 2, 0, 1 is channel 1. The 0, 1 represents the channel number. So if you were to set channel 16 as a servo, you would see 116, 316, and 216. These events you can be using to teach, as we did before. to the CAN out to operate the LED. So 301 being the midpoint event. If I want to teach that, I just drag it and drop it onto the CAN out. Brings up the box. This time we'll do output 2. Okay. Now, with the switch, if we use event 1 on the CAN imp again, drag that onto Camera Universal. This is the new box that pops up in 1.6. 2 tabs, produced events and consumed events. To get it to do anything, from an external event, you need to select the consumed events tab. We'll do that. Event number. Now, anybody who's used to Universal will know that in the generic box, there are 2 lots of 10. So there's 1 to 10 and 11 to 20 on a separate tab. You start at event 2. Okay. Which pin do you want to operate? You want to operate pin 1 because that is a server. That's the one we've configured. What's the action going to be? Well, we want it to either change, only respond to on events, only respond to off events, or not change, which is the logical not. So it is the inverse of change. So in other words, whereas change will send it to the on position, not change, and on event would send it to the off position. So we'll select change. And it tells you what type of channel you're working with. Servo. Press accept. Now, if you wanted to operate a second servo, what you would do is go and select pin 3. And you would have another servo channel. And then you would select a different action for it. And then you would hit accept. We're not going to do that in this particular case. So we'll just have to go back. Just drop that on and redo it. So we're doing event 1, pin 2, event 2, sorry, pin 1, change, accept, OK. Only when you click OK will it write that value to the PIC. Till then, it won't do anything. And now look at Camera Universal, you will see that I have got event 1 there. That says event EV1 is 0, EV2 is 8, EV3 is 0, and so on. So, same again. Press the button. Servo moves. The LED stays off. Press the button to send it back. It lights the LED at the midpoint. You can have it so that it will light other LEDs, or you can have it doing other things. You can also have the module consume its own events. However, I'm not going to cover that here because that gets a little more complicated, and I'm going to do that in the next video. As you can see with the Camera Universal, have your 16 channels. These input types here, standard input, which are the defaults, outputs, depending upon whether you're driving a driving chip or whether you're driving just an LED. Servo bounce is it imitates a semaphore signal. Depends on the pull and the amount of bounce you can set. And multi, you can set up to 4 positions for the servo to be at. Okay, and that's that. So that shows you how to configure that. I press cancel there. Right, one other word for you guys, or for those who want to teach events using the old method, using the generic dialog box. If you go to settings, then go advanced and use generic dialogs, when I then like that, you will see the original box that you would have seen in 1.47, the previous version. The advantage of this is that the new version of the FCU 1.6 as of yet does not support simultaneous actions, or the entry of simultaneous actions. You have to use the generic box to enter that. Now, a simultaneous action is pretty self-explanatory. It's just a question of whether you want one servo to move and then another servo to move, or whether you want them both to do it at the same time. Useful if you're doing things like turnouts where you've got crossings where you've got 2 turnouts that need moving at the same time. If you don't want these and you don't need these, you can stop them being produced by entering 0 into the event using the generic dialog box. So if I go settings, advanced, use generic dialogs, double click 201. Oh, hasn't cancelled it. There we go. Select 201. I select 0 there, enter 0, even though it says 0. It will go away and it will write 0. And the same thing with that one. You have to enter something. You can't just assume that because it says 0, it is 0. Okay, now I've entered 0. I can use Alt-D to delete that, I think. Console. Anyway, events, delete. Okay, so that's that one gone. And events, delete. Yes. Show you a watch now. I clear there. That only the midpoint event has been produced. The default is for it to produce all 3. If you don't want the others produced. If you want to get those back for any reason, the easiest way is to go back into the node itself, change the channel to a different type, and then change it back again. That will reset it all the defaults. Okay, that's it for today. Okay, guys, thanks very much.